In Greek mythology, Amphitrite was an important goddess of the sea. As wife of the god Poseidon, who we will talk about later, Amphitrite held the title of Queen of the Sea. This is how she became the queen. She was a Nereid, one of 50 daughters of the Old Man of the Sea, Nereus. Poseidon sought a wife among these beauties and was immediately struck by Amphitrite. He wooed her with great treasure, and when he proposed marriage, she fled from his fishy grasp and hid with the Titan Atlas. Eventually, Poseidon sent his dolphin-cum spy, Delphin, to fetch her back, and the king of the sea wedded his queen. Their marriage is fairly stable but wasn't perfect. He once got eyes for a beautiful nymph called Scylla. When Amphitrite found out, she turned her into a vile monster with dogs' heads around her waist and multiple tails. Sedna. Sedna is the Inuit goddess of the sea and marine animals, with a tragic backstory. Sedna was originally a beautiful human girl. She turned down all of the suitors her father had for her, but one day she fell for a handsome man and married him on his island. She then realized he had been a shape-shifting loon bird all along. Her father tried to carry her on his kayak back home, but the angry loon bird attacked the boat. The only way he could think to stop the bird was to drown his daughter in the icy waters. He cut off her clinging fingers and she disappeared beneath the waves. From there, her dismembered fingers turned into seals, and she became one with the sea, storing marine animals in her hair, only letting the Baffin Island Inuit find animals to hunt for food when she was in a good mood. Ryujin. Ryujin, the dragon-like god from Japanese mythology, was considered a god of the sea. As you'll see, in East Asian mythology, dragons are strongly linked with water and the seas. The origin of Ryujin is believed to have been syncretized from the Indian king of the serpents, Vasuki, or the serpent Naga, via China. He could turn into a human at will and lived in a grand palace under the sea with marine animals serving him. Tangaroa. In Maori mythology, Tangaroa is the Atua, or god of the sea, fish, and sometimes fertility. In the beginning of Maori myth, there was only Ranginui, the sky father, and Papatuanuku, the earth mother, who lived in a constant embrace. Between them was only their children, Tangaroa and his brothers, in complete darkness. He joins his brothers in forcibly prying their parents apart. When they succeed, one of their other brothers, Tawirimatea the storm god, gets angry and attacks them. Tangaroa manages to flee into the sea with his fish children to avoid his wrath. But Tangaroa isn't a coward. Once, after enticing flesh-eating eels out of his consort Faumea's underwater region, he makes more fish god babies. And when one of their wives, Hina, gets kidnapped by a giant octopus, he slays it and rescues her. Chalchi-Huitlique. The Aztec deity Chalchi-Huitlique is most often associated with water, the sea, and rivers. The name Chalchi-Huitlique translates to Jade Skirt Woman, and she was married to Tlaloc, who we spoke about in our Thunder Gods video. After Tlaloc's third world or sun was destroyed, Chalchi-Huitlique became the ruler of the fourth world. Dragon Kings. Dragon kings are gods from Chinese mythology with domain over the seas and rain, also known as Long Wang. Originally, there were 4 dragon kings each with domain over seas of different directions. But later, the Chinese believed that there was a dragon king for every river, sea, and body of water. These dragon kings lived under the sea in beautiful palaces with great riches and treasures, some of which were stolen by the trickster monkey god, Sun Wukong. Ahto, also named Ahti, is the Finnish god associated with water and the sea. He lives at the bottom of the sea with his cold and cruel-hearted wife, a mermaid goddess of water and lakes, Velamo. Their palace is known as Atolla, and there lies his most prized possession, Sampo, a magical talisman of success, which was originally stolen and thrown into the sea. Mami Wata. Mami Wata goes by many names depending on the region. She is a deity of many things, including water and the sea. She is often depicted as mermaid-like, or a mystical woman holding serpents. She is said to be a beautiful deity who seduces travelers and requests discretion, which she will reward handsomely. But if the lover tells of their tryst, she causes the ruin of his family and finances. In some incarnations, she is known as La Sirene, and she is married to our next water deity, Agwe. Agwe is a voodoo spirit or lower with patronage of the sea and fish. Known as the shell of the sea, all fish and marine animals come under his domain, so fishermen use conch shells to appease him and call for his protection during their fishing trip. Susanoo. Another Japanese deity, Susanoo, is one of the more important gods. He holds domain over sea and storms. He often fights with his sister, the sun goddess, Amaterasu, and was seen as a trickster god and a bit of a miscreant. He made his sister hide in a cave, leaving the world in darkness, and when the gods threw him out of heaven, the kind food goddess Ogetsuhime offered him food, so he murdered her. He thought the food might have been defiled, and so instead took seeds from her body and grew rice and other foods we have today. Manannán mac Lir. Manannán mac Lir from Irish mythology is primarily known as the sea god. His father is Lir, the literal personification of the sea. Unlike most other sea gods, he doesn't live at the bottom of the sea, but in a magical paradise realm known as Even Ablach, which is said to be full of apple trees and swans. He rode a chariot that skimmed over the water easily, alongside his wife Fand, the Pearl Beauty. Nyai Roro Kidul. In Indonesian and particularly Javanese mythology, Nyai Roro Kidul is the goddess of the South Sea. She has the ability to summon storms, control sea life, and create great tsunamis. But it wasn't always that way. Originally, she was a princess called Devi Kadita who was cast out of her palace when an evil stepmother put a curse on her. She heard the sea calling out to her, so she jumped in. This broke the curse and turned her into the immortal goddess and queen of the Southern Sea. Njord. The Norse Vanir god known as Njord was mainly associated with the wind, wealth, and the sea. He was the father of the love and war goddess, Freya, and the god of peace and fertility, Freyr. Njord's domain was known as Noatun, the shipyard, a seaside escape by the waves. The most famous tale regarding Njord is his marriage to the wintry giantess, Skadi. Skadi came to the Aesir gods looking for a husband as compensation for them killing her father. She wanted to marry the most handsome god, Baldur, but was mistaken and chose Njord by accident. Their marriage was miserable. For half a year they lived together in Skadi's icy, snow-covered domain in the mountains, which Njord hated. While Skadi hated the noise of the sea and brightness of Njord's home in Noatun. Enki. Enki was known in Mesopotamia as the deity of knowledge, the sea, and magic. He was worshipped at one of the world's oldest cities, Eridu. At the beginning of humanity, he traveled through the land filling rivers and seas with fish, appointing minor gods to look after them. During the Gilgamesh flood myth, the gods deemed that humanity needed to be purged through a flood. Enki didn't agree with this destructive act and so instructed the king Zusudra to build a boat to escape the flood. Varuna. Varuna is a god from Hindu mythology with domain over the sky and the sea. Originally, in the Vedas, Varuna is regarded as a god or lord of the sky and is often associated with the god of friendship and love, Mitra, and represents the night in comparison to Mitra's association with the day. But later, in the Puranas, he became seen as more of a god of the oceans and rivers, riding upon the Makara, a legendary water monster mount. Mazu. Mazu, a goddess in the Chinese mythos, held power over the domain of the sea. Originally, it is said that Mazu was a human woman, a clairvoyant shamaness called Lin Moniang, who could see into the future, particularly the weather. She could heal sick people and told fishermen when it was safe to go out. Eventually, she traveled to a mountain, disappeared into the mist, and became a goddess, deified by the Chinese people. Yam. In Canaanite and Ugaritic mythology, Yam, or sometimes Yam Nahar, is the god of the sea. He is a powerful god who once fought the thunder and hurricane god, Baal or Hadad, over being named the king of the gods and the favor of their father, El, the supreme deity. El initially prefers Baal, so Yam starts a rebellion and goes to the divine council of gods, demanding that they deliver Baal to him. They face in battle, and Yam initially has the advantage until the god, Qadir-u-Qasis, secretly crafts Baal 2 new weapons. Armed with these, Baal eventually conquers Yam and is crowned the king of the gods. Aegir and Ran. Aegir and Ran are Jotuns that come from Norse mythology and represent the sea. Aegir and Ran are husband and wife who live beneath the sea in a wonderful hall. And Aegir represents the calm and hospitable aspects of the sea, whereas Ran embodies the dark, angry, and thrashing power of the sea. Tiamat. The Mesopotamian primordial goddess of salt water and the sea is known as Tiamat. When the world first existed in Mesopotamian mythology, there was only Tiamat, the salt sea, and her consort, the god Apsu of fresh water. Tiamat gave birth to the first gods Lamu and Lahamu, who then gave birth to more gods, etc., etc. Tiamat was often pictured as a primeval dragon. After her husband was killed by one of their offspring, the aforementioned Enki, Tiamat in anger gave birth to many monsters including scorpion men and centaurs to attack her descendants, but was eventually killed by the god Marduk. Eventually, her body was turned into the sky and the earth. Poseidon. Poseidon from Greek mythology is probably the name you think of when you hear god of the sea. He came to rule over this domain after the Titanomachy, a 10-year war between the Olympians and the Titans. After the Olympians' victory, Poseidon was awarded the domain of the sea, while his brother Zeus ruled the heavens and sky, and Hades the underworld. His romance with the goddess of the harvest Demeter is quite interesting. He fell hard for Demeter's beauty, and to sway her he swore to create the most beautiful animal in the world, which resulted in him creating the stallion, a beautiful horse. But by the time he had created this, he had grown bored of Demeter and didn't feel any love for her anymore. Thanks for watching. See you next time at Darkness and Lore.